This morning,
I'm Andrew Gounardes, and I'm running for the state senate.
A Brooklyn Democrat hoping to ride a blue wave and tip the balance of power in Albany. He's out to defeat 8-term Senator Marty Golden, the last remaining Republican state leader in Brooklyn. Here where they both stand on the issues.
Now, from 42nd and 2nd, this is Pix 11 News Close-Up with Marvin Scott.
Good morning, everyone. When voters go to the polls a week from Tuesday, Democrats are hoping that the so-called blue wave will put them back in control of the House of Representatives. And here in New York, of course, we have the race for governor and several other top offices. A lot of political focus will be on Brooklyn, where the last remaining Republican state official in that borough is in a tight race to keep his seat in the Senate. Marty Golden has been a strong voice in Albany for 16 years now, and he's now seeking his 9th term. A loss of his seat could tip the balance of power in the upper chamber. Andrew Gounardes is hopeful that the Trump presidency has energized Democratic voters in a district where Democrats outnumber Republicans 2-1. Gounardes is an attorney who is currently serving as general counsel to Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming in. We're not going on a debate format here. We're going to have an open forum, a civil discussion. I want to hear where you both stand on the issues.
Thank you, Marvin.
If I may begin, let's start by an issue that has really been dominating the state for so many years, the cloud of corruption that hangs over Albany. We've had over 30 elected officials in the past 10 to 15 years, either indicted, convicted. We've had several just this year alone. Want to know where you stand. You've been in the legislature, in the Senate for so many years. We hear so much talk from politicians. We're going to eradicate this corruption. What is your solution to it, Senator?
Well, we've gone after the taking their pensions away from them, so they're no longer getting their pensions when they get arrested. And that, to me, is very, very important. And it shows the system does work. If you want to come and you have bad intentions in Albany, it shows that 30 people did come, 30 were arrested, and 30 are going to jail. So if you want to come to Albany and do the wrong thing, you will be arrested, and that's the important part, and you will lose your pension. This is not a place that we want the criminal element in. This is the greatest state in the nation. We do not need this.
Mr. Gounardes?
You know, I think it goes, we have caught 30 politicians up in Albany over the last 10 years, but there's much more than that who are doing shady practices, and really this all stems from campaign finance reform. The fact that money just flows through Albany like an open faucet, and it really corrupts the entire political process. We have so many legislatures who have either been under investigation by the U.S. Attorney or the FBI or others, and some of these investigations have gone forward, some of them haven't finished yet. We really need to stop the money flowing through Albany in order to end the corruption practice.
The pay to play.
Pay to play, exactly. And that's why I've also proposed what I call the golden rule, to prohibit politicians from spending all of this campaign cash for personal expenses or at family-owned businesses, which I think is really criminal.
Now, the governor had the Moreland Commission to look into corruption in the legislature, but then he abandoned that. Would you advocate returning of a Moreland-type commission?
Well, the Moreland Commission did, in fact, get to the bottom of some of these elected officials, and it was responsible for a lot of these going to jail. I am not afraid of a Moreland Commission. I think a Moreland Commission would probably be a good idea, again, to get up and operating if necessary. I think it is, and I think there's no reason not to do it.
I absolutely do agree that we need another Moreland Commission. And when the governor disbanded the Moreland Commission the first time around, the U.S. Attorney took those files and he continued those investigations. I know Marty was one of the subjects of those investigations for quite a while. And that just proves that we have a lot more work to do in order to clean up corruption in Albany.
Okay. I want to turn to issues that are affecting everyday New Yorkers, principally the transit system. Yeah. It's broken. What do we have to do to fix it? What's your solution?
My solution is to give riders a vote on the MTA board. I think right now riders don't have a seat at the table, and decisions are being made, budgets are being approved, expenses are being made that don't have an impact on riders' everyday commutes. Riders deserve to have a seat at the table so that we can vote on the projects, priorities, and most of all, the budget of the MTA. We shouldn't be spending tens of millions of dollars putting fancy lights on the Kosciuszko Bridge instead of reinvesting in our signaling network, which is more than 100 years old.
Senator, what's your fix?
That was my colleague here, my good opponent here is governor to put those lights on that bridge. But we need money. We need somewhere in the category of $30 billion to be able to get the 10-year plan done that the MTA wants to get done. We sat down, myself, Senator Lanza, and the governor. We negotiated out congestion pricing that gave $400 million to the MTA this year coming up. They will be able to bond that money out if they want, and they will get themselves $7, $8 to $9 billion for capital programs if they need be. Everything has to be on the table going into next year so that we can take a look at where we're going to get the funding, not just for the 10-year plan, but there are 2 5-year capital programs. That's another $30 billion. So we're looking at $60 billion over a 10-year period that has to come from somewhere to get that new signaling system. That signaling system is older than you and me put together. We need a signaling system that is in the 21st century, and I do believe the gentleman that's in charge of it, I do believe he will get this 10-year plan done, and we will have that new signaling system, more trains on a track, and more opportunity for the people in our city to have a better transportation system.
$30 billion in debt right now is the figure, if I'm correct.
Well, $30 billion if they with their plan,
right.
and if they come up with their 5-year plan, which is every 5 years we do that as well.
So funding is important. There are two proposals on the table. One for the governor, one for Mayor de Blasio. One is congestion pricing. One is a millionaire's tax to help fund that fix for the transit system. Which do you favor, Andrew?
I think the more sustainable approach is congestion pricing, because we need to get cars off the road in our central business district while also reinvesting in our mass transit system. But we're going to need much more than $30 billion to modernize and update our subway system. We need a lot more money, so everything needs to be on the table when it talks about creating additional revenue for the MTA.
You got to realize I put up a lockbox that's up there right now that the governor, we hope, will sign it. That governor takes the money out of the fare box and puts it into the into general fund. We need that general fund money, not in the general fund, but in the MTA. That's hundreds of millions of dollars. Then we got the $836 million for immediate repairs between the mayor and the governor. Everything has got to be on the table going into next year to make sure we have a sound program going forward so that we can have a real MTA system. The MTA system is very, very in dire need of real serious funds. We need to get everything that we can.
No quick fix here.
No quick fix.
But I just want to point out that even though the governor may have proposed those switches, Marty, you voted to approve those switches when you voted for the budget for the last 6 years, and you voted to approve diverting $500 million from the MTA without making us think about it. So while it might be the governor's MTA, you also have a responsibility to stand up and lead on this issue.
Those
and to do it just now in an election year is kind of disingenuous. So I think,
let the senator
I think
respond.
It's important that you take ownership for the votes that you cast.
You made the point.
Let
the senator respond.
The $500 million, if we're talking about cashless tolls that the governor took to make cashless tolls across the state of New York, that's part of it. So you got to think where the money's coming from, and we put all of the money back in by capital money and by operating dollars. Senator Golden is on top of his game when it comes to this, and he has always been. That's why you see the money going in to the MTA today, the $400 million congestion pricing that we negotiated with that governor. And the same thing in getting the lockbox done, and same thing when it comes to getting that $836 million. Golden puts his money where his mouth is.
We're going to take a break. Many more issues, talking about a key state Senate race in Brooklyn. Stay with us as Pix 11 News Close-Up continues. Now back with State Senator Marty Golden and the Republican seeking his 9th term in the State Senate, and Andrew Gounardes, the Democrat, who is seeking to unseat Senator. Issues we're talking about here. One of the central issues you've got is pedestrian safety.
Absolutely.
And we've had, like in Brooklyn alone, a 12% increase in pedestrian deaths just in the past year.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a real concern that parents and seniors and pedestrians of all age fear walking down the street every single day. Speeding cars, lack of traffic enforcement, unsafe road designs. I've been a really strong proponent of speed cameras in school zones. We only have 140 right now. We have more than 2,000 schools, nearly 2,000 schools in the city. We are nowhere near enough the number of speed cameras that we need to keep our schools safe. And this is an issue that's near and dear to my heart. My family suffered the loss of someone to a traffic crash many years ago, so this is something that lives with us on a daily basis. We need to be doing more to make sure that we are improving the safety of pedestrians in every single corner in the city of New York, and we're failing that mark right now.
Now, Senator, you initially were opposed to the installation of speed cameras. You did reverse your course, but why were you opposed to that?
Marvin, that's not true. I'm sure my opponent has tried to point that out, but I was on the original bill that put the 140 cameras into existence in the beginning. And guess what? I'm on 2 bills that gets the existing 140 cameras and remains in law, and there's another bill that's 290 cameras that increases by another 140. I'm on both of those bills, and I think that's very important that we do have speed cameras because it does reduce accidents. You got to remember, Vision Zero was supposed to bring down traffic accidents. It hasn't. We've reduced the traffic down to 25 miles an hour. We have more to do, and we got to get on top of it, and we do need those cameras.
I mean, I'm glad that Marty has finally seen the light on this issue and has reversed his opposition. The truth is, he was opposed to the speed cameras 5 years ago, and it was only after parents in our neighborhood protested and picketed in front of his office to demand that he drop his opposition to the speed camera program that allowed the first pilot program to happen 5 years ago. There were parents who held a vigil in front of his office a few months ago calling for renewal of the program. He refused to sign on to the bill until after the parents were there.
But he signed on to it.
Finally, after listening to parents
So I've got you both
city.
in agreement on this issue.
So my question is, why don't we have speed cameras in every school zone in the city of New York? I'm waiting for Marty to introduce that bill. Instead, he introduced the bill
My opponent has a little problem with the
program.
truth. Just keep rambling.
Where's the bill, Marty?
Keep rambling.
Where's the bill for 2,000 speed cameras for 2,000 schools?
Keep rambling. You'll never get it done.
Marty, where's the bill for 2,000 speed cameras for the 2,000 schools?
Keep rambling.
Can you answer the question? I think the viewers want to know. Do you support speed cameras in every school zone?
I support speed cameras across the city of New York.
In every school?
And the city of New York needs to get us a study. No, sir, I do not.
No, not
I
every
want to
school.
see where the study is, where it's needed, and we have to put these cameras, what these cameras have done. The city has not gotten back to us with that study. We want to see, why do we have cameras at a location? Has the cameras at that location slowed down the traffic and saved lives at that location? And if it's not, then we got to move those cameras around. We also have mobile cameras, which they turn on, they got in a car, and they can put them on any location around the city of New York. I think we need more of them as well. There has to be a study as to how effective these cameras are and where to place these cameras.
But just a minute ago, you said that the cameras work, so we know that they work. So the issue now is...
Isn't it true that right now there's a temporary bill that has to be renewed each month by the governor, and because the legislature did not come back to any special session during the summer, because they did not. Obviously, it was not seen as important enough to come back for a special session. Why is the legislature refusing to make these cameras permanent?
His colleagues in the Assembly went home when the bill was done, and they refused to vote on it. So that's the problem. You see, that's the Democrats. He complains about the Republican Senate. The Democrats are in charge of the Assembly, in charge of the City Council. It's the governor, and he's the mayor of the city of New York, all Democratic. So I can't understand why you have such problems when you can't get anything done with your own party.
That's just
Give
not
me a
true,
break.
Marvin.
It is
true. The Republican conference wanted to tie renewal of the speed camera program to tax extenders, and they refused to decouple the bills. That's why the bill did not come up for a vote in Albany, because the Republicans in the Senate refused to let the bill come up as a standalone bill to extend and renew the speed camera program.
Another issue that has to be
exaggeration.
Another issue has to be tackled in the next session of the legislature. Moving on to other issues in the short period of time we have, homelessness, a great problem throughout the state of New York. What would each of you do to resolve that problem?
Well, the problem is we have an affordable housing crisis in this city. We need to be building hundreds of thousands of new affordable housing units for all different income bands. This is not just about low-income housing. This is about a teacher and a firefighter who can't afford to buy a home, in one of the outer boroughs and can't afford to make rent. We need to be building much more housing, much more quickly. And we also need to look back at how homelessness, the spike in homelessness started. If you trace it back, the spike really began after 2011 when the legislature ended a subsidy program that was meant to provide emergency rental assistance to people who were on the brink of homelessness. The legislature got rid of that subsidy program, and then you saw the numbers start to spike through the roof for homelessness in New York City.
As a key member of the legislature, of the State Senate of New York, why hasn't some action been taken over the years? We've been hearing about the homeless crisis for decades.
You don't need to see any city. You see San Francisco, you see other large cities around the city, around the country that do the same exact thing that this mayor does. This mayor is not being responsible to the homeless in this city. You don't see this in other cities. They turn around and make sure to get them to shelters at evening. They don't leave them on the streets. These people, a lot of them don't take their medications. We got to get them back on their medications. We got to get the homeless families into real housing. We put up a plan to design buildings build. We did it for the Brooklyn-Queens Expressway to save hundreds of millions of dollars and time for the city of New York, and we did the same thing for NYCHA by putting $250 million up there and giving them design build so they can get those 30,000, 40,000 apartments that are not being used today to try to help us get those apartments up and ready and to get some of those homeless families into those apartments.
You know, part of the problem, Marvin, is that we give away generous tax subsidies for luxury developments across this city. Luxury condo buildings. You know, Marty authored a bill 4 years ago to give a 95% real estate tax abatement to a luxury condo building on the Upper West Side where the top penthouse sold for $115 million. The city lost $44 million in revenue because of that one single tax break. How many families could we be putting into homes or temporary transitional housing with that $44 million that Marty and the Senate Republicans have given away to millionaires and billionaires? That's money that should rightfully go back to hardworking working class and middle class families across the city and help put people and keep people in their homes.
Marvin, give the Senator an opportunity to respond before we go to break.
We got a 2% property tax cap across the state of New York. Guess what it saved the taxpayers in the state of New York? $40 billion since 2013. Guess what the city of New York has done? They refuse to do the tax cap, and we can't get a home rule out of this city council, and we can't get the assembly to vote on it. So guess how much they spent? $27 billion in new property taxes since 2013. That's what it's cost the taxpayer here, and that's what the taxpayer outside the city of New York has saved. You think you'd be able to help with that? Answer is no.
Well, if we didn't give away so much to luxury condo owners, Marty, then maybe we'd be able to return that money back to hardworking families.
You're talking about nickels compared to the money we're talking about. $40 billion savings to taxpayers outside the city of New York, and $27 billion.
$44 million
you seem to be all right and doing nothing about it. You keep on rambling on. Keep rambling.
Okay.
I think you're losing touch, Marty.
No, I'm in touch. You're not. You don't understand the facts. You should understand the facts.
I'm sure this will continue during the break, but we'll be right back. Back with the Senate race, the 22nd congressional, the Senate district from Brooklyn, and we have the candidates here: Senator Marty Golding and Andrew Gounardes, who is the Republican candidate, the Democratic candidate opposing the Republican candidate.
Lose me some votes there.
Get myself straight here. Let's talk about other issues. We have an opioid crisis in the state. What would each of you do to resolve it?
Well, obviously, the New York State Senate has moved in the right direction. It's a shame that these kids are on the street. It's a shame they are dying on the streets, and it's something for us, we should, as a state, we should be compassionate, understanding, and we should be able to infuse money into this system so we can make sure there's insurance money there, make sure we get these kids into rehabs, get them into long-term rehabs, and making sure that we get these kids and families back on track. And we also got our military veterans are out there on the street as well. We want to make sure that we're out there giving them a hand up as well and getting them into services. We put over $800 million in the last 3 years into these programs so that we can help get those kids off the street. We also have to do one thing else. We have to go after those drug dealers. We have to increase penalties. Unfortunately, when you try to increase the penalties, these bills go and die in the Assembly, his colleagues in the Assembly, and it dies there. And it's unfortunate. We need to pass tougher laws when it comes to drugs, and we need to be able to help these kids and families get back on track.
I mean, this is really, it's a crisis facing all of the neighborhoods across New York City, and this is a crisis that affects everyone. I know a few months ago, Marty said that it was a ghetto drug, and that's why we really shouldn't be paying attention to it, which is really unfortunate. We need medical-based treatment solutions that can provide comprehensive wraparound services to help people break the cycle of addiction, break the chemical dependencies that are forming in their brain, and helping them get their lives back on track. That's really where the focus should be, on medical-based comprehensive wraparound treatments.
What about the legalization of marijuana? Do you favor it?
No, I do not. You should get your facts. I said I'm not in favor of ghetto drugs. It's not a ghetto drug is exactly what I said. Go ahead. No, I'm not in favor of legalizing marijuana. I think it's a gateway drug. Other states are doing it. It's wrong because they see the cash cow coming in Colorado. It should not happen. It's only going to get more of our kids in trouble.
What about decriminalizing it?
No.
Still opposed to that?
Yes.
I would support decriminalizing marijuana because the reality is we're sending too many people to jail for smoking marijuana, and they're getting punitive sentences, and they shouldn't be put in jail for that.
What about legalizing
I don't see any kids going to jail for
support.
smoking marijuana. There's no kids going for jail marijuana. They get summonses and they get released. The object of the game, we're talking about going after the guy that's selling marijuana, the guy that's out there smoking the marijuana in front of other kids and selling these nickel bags. They should be arrested. They should be put in the system, through the system, and then released.
And that's only a recent change. Up until recently, people that were caught smoking were being put in jail.
It's decriminalized now. Do you favor the legalization?
No, I'm not ready to go the full step to say legalization first. I think we need to be first focusing on decriminalizing, and then we can have a separate conversation.
I want to bring up something else because it's become an issue in this campaign, the parole of cop killers by the governor. You both have opposite views on this.
Well,
we don't, actually, but okay.
No, we do. He believes that Herman Bell, who killed 3 New York City police officers, it's all right for this governor to parole him, and of course now he's taken and allowed him to go and vote, and other cop killers as well. And my colleague, or I should say my opponent here, believes that that's okay. It's double talk. He shouldn't be paroling them. These guys should not be back on the streets. You kill a cop, you belong in jail. You molest a child and hurt a child, you belong in jail. This is unfortunate that this is happening here in the greatest state and the greatest nation in the world, and this governor is behind it. And he supports. He's the governor's patsy and he's the mayor's patsy, and that's unfortunate.
For the 18th time in this campaign, I do not agree with the parole board's decision. I do not believe that Herman Bell should have been paroled. I can't make that any more clear than I already have. Marty, I'm sorry you can't acknowledge the facts or listen to the truth when it's brought before you. So I do not believe that what the parole board did was correct in this case, and that's why the legislature changed the law 13 years ago now, to make sure that anyone who killed a cop is not eligible for parole, and that's the current state of the law, and that's how it should remain. Plain and simple.
Senator, is it true you called your opponent here a Martian from Mars because he defended the mayor's new policy of gender-neutral birth certificates?
No, I called him a Martian from Mars because of all of the programs that he has, that he wants to get out there. He wants, what do you call it, single-payer health care. He wants free colleges for all. Who's paying for this? There's no way we could pay for it. That was all part of a long statement that, and he went on to say the same thing about the housing issue right after he talked about the birth certificates. Birth certificate, male, female. Somebody wants to change the birth certificate at 18 years of age, that's fine with me. But if you're born a male, you're born a female, you put it down.
Mr. Gounardes?
Marvin, we can show you the video. Marty said that very clearly right after I defended the birth certificate proposal. Right on video, Marty said he called me a Martian from Mars.
I did call you that.
And,
I don't deny that.
And it was right around the issue of the birth certificate. So it wasn't about anything else. It had to do with the birth certificates thing. But look, to the bigger point here, Marty, you sound like someone who knows the cost of everything but the value of nothing. We're the 10th largest country in the economy in the world. Don't sit here and tell us that we can't afford to do big things like educate our kids and take care of people who are sick or dying. We can do it. New York is the most incredible place. You say it all the time. It's the greatest state and the greatest country in the world. Why can't we afford to educate our kids and make sure that we give everyone health insurance and make sure we have affordable housing for everyone?
The state of New York is a $160 billion budget. You know what the state of Florida is? $80 billion. Guess how many people live in Florida? Same amount of people that live here in New York. Why do they live in Florida? Because it's cheaper to live there. We had more out-migration in this state in the last 3 years than we ever had. Never happened to us before. Hundreds of thousands of people are leaving here because of the taxes and because of the regulations. They can't afford to stay here. And he wants to put more of a burden on the poor taxpayers and the companies. The companies would be responsible for his single-payer health care. 80% of that money would have to, small business would have to pay for it. You'd be putting people out of business. It's plain wrong.
Ridiculous.
It's absurd.
Totally ridiculous, but anyway.
I know.
I know facts are tough for Marty, but that's okay.
Yeah. I'm being given a cue that we only have 1 minute, and I want to give you both an opportunity. First, Andrew, why do you feel that you are the right person to replace Senator Golden in the state Senate?
No, thank you, Marvin, and thank you for the opportunity to be here. Look, the issues that face not just the neighborhoods of southern Brooklyn, but across the city, rising housing costs, rising healthcare costs, an MTA system in crisis, overcrowded schools, these issues have not been resolved year after year after year. And we're not going to do it sending the same people back to Albany with the same failed ideas. It's the year 2018. It's the 21st century. We need 21st century ideas to solve these challenges and solve these problems and help move New York State forward, not keep us stuck in the past. That's why I'm running.
Okay, Senator Golden, why should the voters keep you in this Senate?
Well, the 22nd Senatorial District do not want the social left-leaning individuals running our great, great district. From Marine Park, Garrison Beach, Manhattan Beach, right back to Bay Ridge. They want sound policies. They want somebody that's got good ideas, reduces taxes, and gives the people the opportunity to live and stay in the community. His ideas just do not work for our community, and they will not work for our community.
On that note, we have to say thank you both to Andrew Gounardes and State Senator Marty Golden. Be sure to vote a week from Tuesday, 22nd Brooklyn Senatorial District. That'll do it for our program for this week. I'm Marvin Scott. Thanks for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, everyone.